Rain hammered against the glass walls of the Monroe Hotel like the sky was trying to warn him, but Carter Hayes sat motionless, staring at the medical bill, crumpled beneath his trembling fingers. Every number felt like another door closing. He had worked every shift he could find, warehouse nights, delivery mornings, mechanic weekends, and still his daughter's treatment remained painfully out of reach. He was a single father trying to hold the world together with hands that felt too small. And then the doors parted and she walked in. Adelaide Monroe, the woman whose cold ambition was known across the city. CEO so feared and admired that people whispered her name like a myth, yet at that moment, dressed in a soaked scarlet dress, her eyes carried something far heavier than power, loneliness. And when she placed the thick envelope on the table and quietly offered him $10,000 to pretend to be her husband for 1 week, Carter felt his breath collapse inside his chest. That if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that change hearts, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bright Arts. Your support helps these stories reach someone who needs them. Carter never imagined he would even stand in the same room as someone like Adelaide, let alone be asked to step into her private world. But desperation wraps itself around pride until pride stops breathing. He thought of his daughter Haven, lying in a hospital room painted with stars she couldn't see. Without help, he thought of her small voice asking him, "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" He didn't know how to answer, not anymore. So when Adelaide extended her hand, steady, emotionless, rehearsed, Carter accepted, not realizing his life was about to break open in ways he never saw coming. To Adelaide's penthouse towered above the waking city, shimmering as daylight stretched across the skyline. To Carter, entering her world felt like stepping into another universe, one built on marble floors, designed smiles, and walls so clean they reflected the emptiness inside her. Adelaide didn't smile, not once. She walked through the space like someone moving through museum, careful, distant, untouched. It didn't take Carter long to understand why she needed him. Her company's board was circling her like vultures. Rumors of her emotional instability threatened her position. Her image needed humanization, and what better way to soften a ruthless CEO than a loving husband? But Adelaide didn't believe in love, at least not anymore. Something in her eyes told him she had buried that part of herself long ago. Still, she laid out the rules, the expectations, the rehearsed story of how they met and fell in love, the appearances they would need to make, the subtle affection they would need to display. Carter listened, numb, exhausted, overwhelmed, but his heart cracked when he noticed the way her voice faltered when she mentioned her family, like the word itself carried centuries of pain. The first public appearance took place in a sun-soaked garden outside a corporate charity event. Cameras flashed like lightning. Executives whispered and watched, and Adelaide's hand hovered near Carter's as if afraid to touch. She kept her chin lifted, her expression cold, but Carter felt the tension vibrating through her. Without thinking, he gently placed his hand over hers. For a moment her mask shattered. She inhaled sharply, as if the warmth of human connection was something she had forgotten how to receive. She didn't pull away. Throughout the week, Carter silently observed the cracks beneath her armor. Adelaide would return from meetings with shoulders stiff and voice tight. She buried herself in work long past midnight, not out of responsibility but out of fear. fear of, slowing down of remembering of, feeling. Carter meanwhile struggled to maintain his composure. He visited his daughter every morning, whispering stories to her while her small fingers wrapped around his. Haven adored the pretty lady in the red dress, as she called Adelaide from the photo Carter had shown her. Carter laughed at that, never expecting those worlds to collide. But life has a way of weaving hearts together when least expected. On the fourth day, Adelaide showed up at the hospital unannounced. Carter walked into the room and stopped short. There she was, Adelaide Monroe, the iron-hearted CEO, sitting beside Haven's bed, reading her a fairy tale book with a softness that made Carter's throat tighten. Haven's face lit up with a joy Carter hadn't seen in months, and Adelaide, she looked alive, warmer, like someone discovering a feeling she didn't know her heart still held. Something shifted that day. The next morning, daylight flooded Adelaide's penthouse as she sat at her piano, an instrument coated in dust, untouched for years. Carter quietly approached, and she admitted she hadn't played since losing her mother, the only person who believed she could be more than a corporate machine. Her voice trembled as she confessed she spent her life building walls to avoid being abandoned again. Carter didn't speak. He simply sat beside her, listening to the quiet unraveling of a woman who had forgotten what it meant to be held by the world. Gently, as the week progressed, the lines between pretending and feeling began to blur. Adelaide found herself watching Carter when he wasn't looking, seeing the way he breathed through pain, the way he carried his love for his daughter like a lighthouse guiding him through storms. And Carter found himself drawn to the woman behind the CEO, someone fragile, lost, yearning for a kind of love she had stopped believing was real. The final night of their arrangement was a company gala held under shimmering chandeliers. Adelaide walked beside Carter, her hand in his, her crimson dress glowing under the warm golden lights. For the first time, she didn't have to pretend. The night was perfect until it wasn't. That a board member approached, dropping a cold comment about her buying affection, again implying she used her wealth to fill the void inside her. Adelaide froze. That wound was old and brutally familiar. Carter stepped forward, his voice calm but firm, defending her with a sincerity that silenced the room. He didn't defend the CEO, he defended the woman. Adelaide's eyes shimmered with something close to awe. No one had ever protected her heart like that. Later, away from the crowd, rain began to fall. Outside the glass hall, streaking the windows with silver, Adelaide stood with her back to Carter, her shoulders trembling. She whispered that the arrangement was over, that their deal had served its purpose, and that she had no right to want more than what she paid. For Carter's chest tightened. He stepped closer, telling her she wasn't purchasing companionship, she was rediscovering connection, and she deserved it. But Carter also knew he couldn't stay in a world of wealth and boardrooms when his daughter needed him more than anything, so he walked away, leaving Adelaide standing alone, clutching a heart that finally dared to feel again. The next morning, sunlight washed over the hospital as Carter sat beside Haven. She squeezed his hand gently, then the door opened and Adelaide walked in with a folder in her hands. Carter stood startled, but Adelaide's eyes were soft, vulnerable. No boardroom armor left, she told him. She made a decision, a real one. She had personally funded Haven's treatment, not as payment, not as part of a deal, but as a gift from someone whose life he had changed. She admitted that the week he spent with her had shown her something she never believed she'd have again, a chance at love that wasn't bought or forced but grown. Through kindness, Carter felt tears burn his eyes. Haven reached out to Adelaide, and the three shared a quiet moment that felt like sunlight breaking through years of storm clouds. If this story warmed your heart even a little, please like, comment, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. Your engagement helps us bring more kindness-filled stories into the world. Before the ending, please comment below. Love deserves second chances. Adelaide didn't need a pretend husband anymore. Carter didn't need money to feel worthy, and Haven, smiling, hopeful, didn't need to fear the future. Together they stepped out of the hospital, sunlight spilling across their path, ready to face a world where love was no longer a myth, but a miracle they had found in each other. One week that changed